Hello there and welcome back to how to build a Geonosian or Red Planet board from the dollar store. And here's the thing. If you haven't seen part one, go check it out. It'll give you some key information. We're watching part two right now, and we're going to look at some more advanced techniques now. Part one gave us some of the basic techniques, and now we're going to look at some more advanced techniques to finish the board, and we're going to look at the finished product. Now, if you haven't liked already or subscribed, please take this time now to like and subscribe. I am making a push to 300 subscribers, and if I get some 300 subscribers, I'm going to give away some 3D printed stuff. And why should you subscribe? Well, because I'm holding a thermal detonator. And no, in reality, subscribe because that way it encourages me to continue to do this videos, and then I can put out more products, and maybe we can learn together and spend some time together in this process. So this next section of boards that I'm going to show you how to do is my creator boards. Now, this is the one section, well, the next two sections, I'm going to use something that doesn't come from the dollar store. Now, you can use something that is from the dollar store. I'm going to show you something here, and then I'll talk to you about the difference here. And so this here is a toilet paper roll turned into a down tree, and I made this just from scrap. And so what is a toilet paper roll, and then I took toilet paper and covered it over, and I used white glue and water to seal it and bring it down. I kept layering toilet paper on it. So if you don't want to go and make the stuff I'm making for the next step, you can just use toilet paper and watered down white glue, and it'll get the same process as what we're going to do here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a crater. Now, so I've drawn a big circle on here. On this one, I'm going to do a large crater. You'll see a couple of the other ones because I wanted to show you different steps and not worry about the drying time. So you're going to take tin foil, a large piece of tin foil, and you're going to take this large piece of tin foil and you're going to roll it this way. And you're going to keep rolling and crumpling as you go. Nobody likes the sound of tin foil rolling and crumpling. Now it's better than a chalkboard. And so you're just going to roll it up kind of into a snake thing. And so tin foil is just something I get at the dollar store. Take that tin foil and you're going to kind of position it the way you want it and kind of make it zigzag, circly, like so on this board. That's a crater. So you're going to twist the ends in together like so. Maybe a bit better than I did. Twist the ends in together. And then you're going to get out your hot glue gun, which also bought at the dollar store, the board. And we're going to take the circle that we made and we're just going to put hot glue on it. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory. Push and reform it to kind of make it a different texture and hold as we do it. So now the next step, now we got that fastened on, I like to take the glue gun and go around it. So I'm going to do that off camera just because my cord on my glue gun is not long enough. The glue is all the way around it. It's got a nice solid thing, and I put the glue around it because it just kind of helps keep it steady while the next stage happens in the drying process. So now, if you're going to do it completely dollar store, all you'd have to do now is take your toilet paper and lay it over top and wet it with glue and just do that, and then do it in multiple layers. I'm going to use something that I make up, and it's kind of like a sculpture mold, but I make it myself for about 10 cents for a liter. It's way better than paying the $20 for a bag of sculpture mold. And so I'm going to just mix that up, and then we'll put that on. So now that I mixed up some of my sculpture mold stuff, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it on, and I'm going to spread it out and let the texture of this stuff go down in. And so this stuff dries up fairly quick. Sculpture mold dries a little quicker than this from what I've experienced. But this gives me the same sort of ability to create a texture and cover the things, and it hardens up with a plaster-like finish. And so I just kind of goop it on and work it around, and it's way cheaper. Affordability in my case is a big part of my crafting. I want to do everything cheap and affordable, and so that's why I work with different mixing of paints and different things like this. Just kind of get that nice fill layer. I'm going to cover the whole tin foil and then spread it out a bit to give it some gaps in the texture. Okay, so here we are. We got it all spread out and created our creator, and this is going to dry up. Now you have about 15 or so minutes where you can still form it. You can push down on it, change the way it looks a little bit. You know, you can make indents and stuff like that, and it will set up after that, because I can put a little bit of indentation right here, and it'll set up like that after. And so you got about 15 minutes to work like that, and then it'll dry out. It'll dry a lot quicker if you put it out in the sun, obviously. And as I said, I don't really have a place to put it in the sun right now, so it's not going to get that way. So then once it's dry, it'll kind of look like this stage here. This is one of the other creator boards that I did, and so that's what it's going to look like once it's dry. And from that stage, then I want to start texturing the paint and getting everything set up inside there. So stage after that, we go back to our texture paint, and so it's good to keep it on hand. I've been keeping it covered up over here. And so we just take our texture paint and give it a good stir up and plop it in. And so we're really strictly going to be texturing it. So when you're texturing it, you want to make sure you get right to the edges. I don't always go up, but I like to get right to the edges of each of these things. You can go up if you want. You can go right up your crater and in it, but I don't like to do it all the way up. But I like to get right to the edges of the crater, so it kind of blends that mix in. And again, try to make sure you don't get over the edge like I just did. And you're going to go like that. And so over here, I put a rock out of this texture in a little bit as I go here, made out of foam. That was just some foam fell off, and I wanted to give it some diversity on this board. And so we got a lot of sandy texture paint, and it's just going to go. So this is by far the messiest part of the game, and you want to be in a place you can clean up really easy. I'm in my basement. It's not the best place to do this, but this is where I can record and do this. So I would recommend doing it in some place you can do it a little messier, but this is what it looks like when it's all ready for the next stage and start drying. And so we're going to let this one dry, and we will come right. So here we are. We are back with the dried version. So in my case, I just had an extra one. I did each one in each stage so you can see it and see it go through it. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get to painting these craters and painting this around here. Now I did a little different technique when it came to the craters. Instead of doing pouring water down paint into it, I went to my local Home Depot, which is an hour away from me, so it's not that local. And I got some paint mixed up. I like the Home Depot version of it. You get these at $3. The bare ones, it's about $3 to $4 maybe for these now. And I like them because the lid screws on, and you can do get that lid back. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brown, and so this is actually a bare color. This is a Cabin in the Woods brown, and I use this for my Merlin mud mix. And so I'm going to take this brown, and I'm going to start filling in the craters of these. And so I'm just going to paint them brown, and I'm not worrying too much about, I'm just trying to get a good cover. And I'm going to do the same thing around here. I'm going to try to get good coverage, and I'm just going to paint them. I'm not worrying about if it gets a little over, as long as I get a good coverage. And if you can see, I've gone a long way out on this to give it some full good shadowing, and I'm going to do the same on the smaller one here. And there we go. That is the first color painted on there, and that was just a tester pot. And so we got our board painted with the brown that we use for our darkened and shadows. And you can also water it down and bring it into your colors if you want and make a wash, or you can make a wash with just mixing brown or black paint with some water. And that will just give you a cheap wash for using on terrain. I wouldn't use it on your models. If you're going to make a wash for that, you're going to use some inks, and you're going to use a couple other things, but that's a whole other topic. So now that we got this stage, what I want to do is give it a little bit more texture before I go in and highlight it. So at this stage, I'm going to take some glue that I have watered down, some PVA glue, and it's in a dollar store bottle. And so I'm just going to spray it. Just give you another overview. And I'm just going to spray some of this watered down PVA glue and spray it in there. And then I'm going to take my texture mixture. Now this is another thing I did not get at a dollar store. You don't have to do this texture. I just like to do the texture mixture. And so all it is some gravel and a little bit of grout. In this case, it's like a purpley grout. And I'm just going to take a little bit of it in here and just let it get into some of these spots. And it'll give me some grit and some gravelly textures on here. It's just really simple. And then, because it's grout will kind of concrete up there a bit. And the gravel gives you even more texture, and it'll just give you that opportunity to do that. And so what I do again is I'm going to just take this glue mixture, glue and water mixture, and spray it down, let that grout and gravel mixture soak into it. And then I let that dry. And so that's something I just let dry, and it dries in and gives it a nice little texture. And the glue and the water actually helps strengthen the board and keeps it strong. I'm going to just make sure it gets a good mix, get that grout nice and hard in there too. Sometimes you just got to get a little dirty and in there with your finger, as we did before. And you can just kind of like plop it on. Now, obviously, not ready for that. This pink insulation, let's talk about hills and stuff. The pink insulation is not something you can get at the dollar store, but this can be got at any hardware store if you want to buy it fresh. But for me, what I do is anytime I see styrofoam from packages or whatever, I keep it, because that styrofoam can be made into hills and different things. This case, this pink insulation, I actually found this pink insulation at the garbage dump when I was there dropping off some recycling. It was in the recycling bin, so I just grabbed it, and it was about a 3x2 foot board. And so this is really good to work with. You can cut it and make slashes in it. And when you paint it, you can get some really good highlights with this. And it can be cut with any knife. You can get hot blades. I have hot blades to cut it too. But because I'm doing a dollar store, you can just cut it with your kitchen knife too. What I did was I did some pre-cutting, because I didn't want to go through it, and some pre-gluing. So what I did was I put some white glue, or in my case I had some leftover of that carpenter's glue. I just put it in on each layer, so that's 3 layers wide, and then I pressed it down, and then I put 3 or 4 toothpicks from the top, 3 or 4 toothpicks from the bottom, and the toothpicks are just bought at the dollar store. Then I just shove them in, and then I break them off at the surface. They will be covered over with texture paint, so any ones that you do see, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And the same thing here. I haven't glued this one yet, but you can see the toothpicks in there. Now, I'm just going to show you a little bit of cutting here. I pre-did a lot of this so we wouldn't be wasting time on video to do this. And so when I cut, one of the things you want to do when you're cutting foam is you want to cut into multiple layers so that you can kind of hide that there's layers. And so you're just going to cut get that a little bit more, there we go. You're going to cut into multiple layers, and you're just going to make it so that things looks like it's more natural. So like, see how there's a gap there? I'm just going to cut down and through and make that so they kind of catch. And same here. See, anywhere there's a seam, I kind of make my cuts to try to hide the seams by adding them into my rock texture. And you can just do that all the way around. And I wanted to create it so it kind of goes on an angle of the board, kind of like this. I don't want this one to be continuing over multiple boards, so it's going to just lay out like this. And so I'm going to put some glue on that, get it glued up, and we'll texture the top with texture paint, so you'll lose that styrofoam look. So let's just get some glue on there so we can get to the next stage and let that dry up. And I will show you on one of the other ones the next stage. So I just like lift my glue up. There we are. I get it on there and I just rub it. Then what I do, so you got a fair amount of glue. And I don't know why I can't keep that in frame today. Let's see. So we got a fair amount of glue there. And what I do is I just take the other piece that I'm going to be working with, and I just rub it together so that I got glue on both pieces. And then I'm going to plop them down on my board. I want to get them on the angle, as I said. I'm trying to make this piece be very universal and very good. And then what I'm going to do is the same thing on the top. I'm going to put the glue on it. So as I was saying, these pink insulations can make any type of scatter trade. So this is something I just threw together really quickly. I just took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of pink insulation, and I just gave it a brown paint and put a little bit of sand on it. And then I gave it a quick highlight with a beige, and then another highlight with a white with dry brushing. And this is really quick. I was in a rush to get something on my small desert board that had some height, and so I quickly made that and threw it out. It took me about 15 minutes, not including dry time. Here's what one of my hills that I'm using on this board is going to look like. This is a smaller hill, and so what I've done is I've got it all fastened. Then I used that same putty mix that I used on the craters to put it in here. They're my sculpting mold mix that I made. If you want to learn more about the sculpting mold mix, I do have a video that will be coming out just on sculpting mold. And I just put it around, and that gives it a solid rock feel around there. And then I texture painted the whole thing. And so the next step is to go in with my brown paint and start painting it and getting it all in the grooves, and I'll show you that real quickly. But a few things I want you to see here is I measured the angle so that everyone, if you look, this is exactly 3 inches here and exactly 3 inches here, and then there's 6 inches of land, and I did the same thing on the other side so that when I have a hill on another board, it matches up. And so it's key to think ahead when you're building hills that you want to go over multiple boards on a modular board. And so that's just what I did. So we'll come back and I'll paint some of this up and just show you the mix and how we do that. So again, I'm using my bare tester pot, cabin in the woods, and so I'm going to take that, and see, I still have this over 3 years of doing terrain, and it's still got a good thing. And I use this for my Merlin mud. So I'm going to just take some and put it on. Now here's the trick. I'm going to really heavily water this down, and so I just keep dipping it in my water, and I'm just really going to, because I don't really need a lot of deep pigment, or so I'm going to really heavy water it down, and I'm just going to cover the deep recesses, and I'm going to make the shadow of the rock around. And as I said, I plop it on. I could water it down before, but I'm really just, you know, giving it a real quick. And what you want to do is make sure you get all the deep recesses, because that's going to create your shadows in there, and you're not going to want to get in there when you're dry brushing in your next stage. So here I've got the whole board covered with some shadows and dark areas, and watered it down in here, and I'm ready to let it dry and just move on to the next step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you the piece that this attaches to on this end over here, or this end. They're both exactly the same, so you can attach it to either way. So I'm just going to pull that out, let it dry while I show you the next one that I already have here. And so we're going to look at this, and we'll look at it from this side. And so that is the section. See, again, it's 3 inches, 6 inches, and 3 inches on either side, so that it works, so they connect together. So when they are modular, and I have another one like this so that they can continue to connect together. And you can do the same thing going this way. You can do 4 inches, 4 inches, 6. I try to do 6 or 8 when it comes to modular boards in the middle. It just gives enough bulk. Obviously, on a side set, 6 is the most you can do. 8 would be great going on this direction. So when you're thinking about that, you want to plan ahead and make sure you do that, because if you don't, it's going to look funny. The board's not going to line up, and it's just going to be not worth the extra effort. It's going to be worth the extra effort to do that. So the same thing when I do the hills and the crevices and stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, and I'm going to start dry brushing it. You can see the different texture. And once again, when I do dry brushing, I go to my mixed stuff, and this is my Reichland Fresh mix that I got, and I talked more about that on video 1. And so the good way to get cheap paint, especially for doing terrain, or even large, if you're doing like large monsters or something and you don't need to finer paint, you can actually thin this out and do it. So when dry brushing, I use a makeup brush, and I just wipe most of it off. And then I go to my trusty paper towel, which you keep around when you're dry brushing, and you just wipe it off. Now, the next thing I do, this is a little step that I do, so I know how much I pull up the edge, and I just paint a little bit on the edge just to know how much I'm getting off, because the edge doesn't really matter. And then I just go in, and I'm going to continue my dry brushing every which direction, and picking out that rock and getting that nice orangey reddish rock color. Now you can go back in with that rock color, this color here, before the sand was added texture. I sometimes go back in there and just highlight a little bit with that first, but this is doing exactly what I want it to do, and just getting that to pop a bit and give it some texture. And I'm just going to take some of that red and wipe some of it off, and I'm just going to add some more of that red into that rock color. I'll come back and do the other section, the other stuff as well. I was finding that was a little too brown, and in my rock I just want a little more of that red tint there, and just gonna get the edges of this rock here. I'm not trying to get the whole board here, I'm just trying to give it a little bit more at the top here. So there's what it looks like after doing some highlights and different stuff. So it's got a nice little color to it. It's got some good depth, and look good with some stuff on it on both ends. And yeah, I can just show you this here for a second. I'm going to go like this, so you can kind of see what I mean about them joining together. And here's the other one that I did earlier. And so when they come together, then they look, decent together. Now and so this is a good time, as I said earlier, when you get the boards that are going to be matching together, sometimes it's good just to kind of give them a similar edge so that they work together. So that's just a closer look at how those are going to work. Okay, here we are back with our hilly bridge that we made earlier, our foam bridge that's going to be part of our board, the hill. And I just want to show you this because there's an important thing here on this is that when we texture paint this, we don't want to do the sides of, I'll just show you here, we don't want to do the sides here because we cut the texture in there. We just want to do the top with texture paint along the floor, over top a little bit of the ground cover, and any really flat areas maybe, but we do not want to do the sides. So we'll just put on our texture paint and then we'll just do what we need to do on our other parts. Okay, I'm going to finish up the rest of this board off camera. I'm going to do the highlights and the shadowing and everything, and then I'm going to show you the finished product of that board, but I'm also going to go through the little details of the whole board. We're going to look over the board put together. How do we pack up the board? What does it look like in storage? Because a modular board's only good if you have a quick, easy way to store it, and so it'll show you the storage. The next thing I want to do is talk about my next video. My next video is going to be how do we take this dollar store board and turn it into a deluxe board. And so I'm going to show you some of my adventures with 3D printing and some good files for Geonotion printing. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be a shorter video. But the key is it'll just show you from taking the board that we see done here in the dollar store video to the next level. Now I would like to ask you just to like, subscribe, click the little bell so you can be notified when I do more videos. And if you're into Star Wars Legion or any tabletop game, ask me a couple comments and then I can decide what I want to make in the future. But not only that, the good thing about the comments is you'll get entered into our draw. So if you liked, subscribed, and commented, you'll be entered into our draw for some 3D printed prizes once we hit the 300 subscriber mark. Thank you guys, and like always, may the force be with you.